All right, evening, everybody. Not good afternoon. It's good evening from the time of recording this video. And happy Saturday. Welcome to the weekend edition of the Robbie Basel Show. Another episode for you. Today, I'm wearing my Jets jersey. Don't question the number I'm wearing. Comment below what jersey I'm wearing. Winner will get pinned if there's even comments. I don't know. You'll get a shout out in the next video. But today we'll start with the Jets because there's a couple things to talk about. We have the Gold Cup, Wimbledon. We have news from F1. We'll start with the Jets because the Jets have actually done something that I'm happy about for the first time in I don't know how long. It's been a couple of weeks, couple of months probably at this point. But the Jets have re-signed Quinnen Williams to a 4-year, $96 million contract, which is big to bolster the defense. And this is something I was going to be preaching about for the next couple of days because the deadline to sign free agents, like to on the long-term extension before the guys under that would be under the franchise tag, excuse me, is Monday. It's coming up. It's coming quick, and the Giants are in trouble with Saquon Barkley. We may talk about him in a second, but the Jets, Quinnen Williams done locked down around $24 million a year. I think is a very fair price tag. I was imagining that he could be possibly getting more. I think he's arguably one of the best D tackles in the league. He's now the second highest paid D tackle in the league, and it's very well deserving. His stats will show it. He was an All Pro last year. He's that guy, and he's mainly that staple, that big name, the main event of that front four with the New York Jets. And I'm just so happy to see him back. I'm wearing the Jets colors like I mentioned earlier. It's a great day to be a Jets fan because, I mean, we really haven't done that much. The Jets have. I'm not part of their team. They have, at least. The Jets haven't done that much recently. I mean, they got Aaron Rodgers. We already know about that. They signed Allen Lazard, McCall Hardman. They've signed other pieces. They drafted Will McDonald. So they've done some moves. But this is the one that I've been waiting for the whole time. And I've preached about it before. I've been very worried about this deal for a little bit now. But at the end of the day, the Jets have finally done it. They get the deal done. But I want to just quickly touch on the Giants and Saquon Barkley because at this rate, he's going to be holding out if he doesn't get a new deal. Remember, the deadline to sign them is Monday. So the Giants are in I think they could be in panic mode, but I think Saquon Barkley could be in panic mode because you see what's going on with these running backs that they don't have as long of I'll call it a lifespan as you've seen in recent years. Do I think the Giants get a deal done with Saquon Barkley before the season begins? And the answer to that question is I don't know. You'd love to see it. You'd love to see him get paid $12 million a year. You'd love to see him get paid what he's valued. But with the way that the new age NFL is, with the run and gun tactic, you see all these guys with the cannon arms, and that's with these high flying receivers, and that's what people care about now. You don't need to see the ground game be as impactful. You need a guy who can rush 75 to 100 yards a game. Saquon Barkley can get you 100 to 150 if you really want him to. But at the same time, is that something you want to spend 10 to 12 million on with the situation Daniel Jones? Now he's making all this money and all this other dilemma with the rest of their roster. So it's a very interesting question to ask. And if you're watching the Giants, even though I'm not wearing their jersey, I do have the helmet in the background. It's right there. There it is. And I mean, I think they need to get this done. I think their best offensive weapon. You have to. I think I'll reword that statement. I think he's their best offensive weapon. He might even be the best player on the whole roster. And the fact that you might not bring him back is absolutely terrible because he's been that big. He was why you were part of the reason why you had a great year last year because of how big he was in the passing attack and the running attack. Because look at the weapons Daniel Jones had last season. I mean, do I need to mention? I don't even remember any of them. I'm gonna be dead honest. I don't know any of them. But the Giants have added pieces. They've added Jalen Hyatt at wide receiver. They've added Darren Waller at tight end. They've tried to add stuff and try to add weapons to this team. But I don't think they're a playoff team without Saquon Barkley. I don't think so. I don't even think it's possible that the Giants, they're a very up and down team. I think they can go multiple different ways with their record this season. I'll talk about that because I do have someone, and I'll talk about them later, who will be on my NFL season preview Actually, I'll just say it now. It's going to be I'm likely going to be the Into the Stands guys are going to do the NFL season preview with me because remember our show. I'll just say it now. I'll say it again multiple times. Into the Stands will be coming back this September. It's so exciting for me, and we'll talk about it more when we do our season preview. And I'll say more. I'll talk about more when our first episode of the year will be. Probably gonna be the second, third week of September. It's likely when you're gonna see us back for another 20 something episodes. I don't even know how many episodes we did last year, but I can't wait to work with Colin and Chris again. They're great guys. They're a lot of fun to be around. We could talk about sports for hours, and I'm just so grateful that I get to work with an awesome team like them. But yeah, I think they'd have a good idea of what would happen next. I think a lot of people would. So, but back to the Giants real quick, because that's who I'm doing the season preview with. It's gonna be Colin and Chris. Episode's gonna come out probably. That would be the episode that Monday. So that would I don't know when that episode's gonna come out. That episode could very well come out that Friday. It's very possible because I'm just gonna make this now before I talk about the Giants again. In late August and early September, there's gonna be episodes that are gonna be on backload. They're gonna have the Premier League season preview. I think might even come out in September, which is unfortunate, but it's just the way it is with editing and all that, and what I have in my disposal right now. It's very possible that you see we have a Champions League preview that might be coming out the second week of September. So you might have to really focus on Into the Stands for your live sports updates from me around, I mean, possibly for the next little bit, but it'll be an interesting, I think that's very possible. That could be 3 episodes in a row. It could be the Premier League preview, NFL season preview, Champions League, and then I could have I'm gonna have a lot of people on. We're gonna possibly have an F1 season recap with. I have someone in mind for that. You guys, I heard people want guests. I'm listening to you guys. I like the idea of guests. I think that's a great idea. So I have people in mind. I'm gonna talk to more about them. I'll talk to them more in the upcoming weeks. Like I said, this week, we're not talking F1 at all. Unless we're talking about today, of course, we have 2 big things to talk about with F1 today, which I'm going to talk about, touch up on next, because I'm going to be on the Starting Grid podcast this weekend. So Saturday and Sunday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Make sure you follow them at the Starting Grid podcast on Instagram. Those are great guys, Rome and Shane. They're awesome. I cannot wait to see those guys. I actually get to see Rome Monday, so that'll be interesting. That'll be a lot of fun. So, yeah, Starting Grid. Make sure you check it out. I'll be on that next week. But we'll actually go to F1 next. Hopefully, you guys have enjoyed the episode so far. There was recent news about. No, we'll start with AlphaTauri and what's been on AlphaTauri. Remember, they've had a very poor start to the season, and they have sacked a driver. Now, I am not a fan of this. They've sacked Nick DeVries. And the reason I don't like the removal of Nick DeVries, he's only had 10 races to prove himself in a bad car. And this is, if for those who really watch F1, this is the new Mick Schumacher from last year, where Mick Schumacher was in a bad car for the first year at Haas. He's still young. He's working with a very experienced driver in Magnussen. Magnussen outperforms him. Haas goes out and gets Hulkenberg, and Hulkenberg and Magnussen have been notoriously known to not really work well together. They've had the rivalry in the past, in the mid-2010s. So it is a very interesting pairing. I think this is very similar to Nick DeVries. Nick DeVries is an old rookie. I believe he's 27 or 28. And he was very underperforming in I'll say it here, equivalent, I don't even know. It was a very slow car. And Red Bull, Helmut Marko and that staff, they've been very quick to axe drivers in the past. And it sucks to see Nick DeVries go. I think he's a very talented driver. I think he'd fit on multiple teams. But the replacement has brought a lot of intrigue and energy, into a lot of Formula One fans because the Honey Badger is back. Daniel Ricciardo is back in Formula One. You've heard it here. It's happened a couple days ago at Half Miles in Georgia. I'm back from Georgia today. I'll be back on the road on for the next episode, which will be on Tuesday. And it's very nice to see Daniel Ricciardo back. I missed him. I missed his energy. he brings a different vibe to Formula One, and I love Daniel Ricciardo. He's one of my favorite drivers on the grid. He was last year definitely, but it's very wholesome to see Daniel back because if you remember, there's a clip that showed Daniel Ricciardo like when new owners would take over F1. A reporter asked Daniel, "What are your top 3 wishes?" And he said, "Race Vegas." Well, Daniel, you'll get your dream now because he will likely be racing in the first ever Las Vegas Grand Prix. It was a destiny. I don't know. I mean, it makes sense for him to be in that AlphaTauri for half a season, possibly moving to replace Sergio Perez at Red Bull. Maybe. I mean, that's possible. More on that in a minute. And Daniel Ricciardo, I think, I mean, you saw what he did in a Red Bull 10 years ago. Because you don't know, he won a Monaco Grand Prix. He was a 7-time Grand Prix winner of Red Bull. He went to Renault because he wanted bigger things. He went to McLaren. I believe, yeah, he did win a race in McLaren. He won an Italian Grand Prix with McLaren. Got a couple podiums, got a good amount of points finishes. And then gets sacked because they thought he was too old and they wanted a young high flyer in Piastri. Now, granted, Piastri's done very well, but he's really only shown out for me in one race, and that was the previous one. So with Ricciardo coming back, how much will this change? How much will Daniel Ricciardo have with the AlphaTauri? How good will he be? And I think we can find that out as soon as Hungary. It's a track Ricciardo's done decently at. A couple points finishes here and there. And I think this could be I'm very intrigued for his debut. That's what I'm saying right now. I'm very intrigued for that debut. It's going to be, I believe it's next week in the podcast, the week that we're not talking about it. So should be very fun, that's for sure. But there's another interesting story that came out of Ferrari, and that was Charles Leclerc being rumored in a possible move with Red Bull. Now, Sergio Perez, there's another meme with Perez, but Sergio Perez has missed Q3 for the last 5 races, and he's actually won a race this year, surprisingly enough. So, why am I bringing up Charles Leclerc and all of this? There's been a lot of rumors. There's been a rumor that Lando agreed to a written deal with, or like a verbal agreement with Ferrari. I don't think that's true. This one actually sounds true-ish. Charles Leclerc has been with Ferrari for the last couple of seasons. He's had mixed success. Now, I think Charles Leclerc is the second best driver in the grid. I've believed that for a long time. And he's in a very underperforming Ferrari this year. I think this is one of the worst Ferrari cars in a while. It's not really challenging for top 5. It's done well. It's gotten itself P2 in qualifying a couple of times. I even think it may have gotten a pole this year. I don't remember. And now it's just, they just can't get it done. Charles can't get it done on the race day because of how bad that car is race-wise. I think it is race-wise, at least. So a rumor with him possibly going to Red Bull makes sense. And yes, it makes sense. Because Sergio Perez, like I said, is qualified bad. He's been able to battle back, but that's just because of the car that they have. Like you saw early on, remember, has the record for the most races without a win. It's 100 some, I think it's like 196. And I believe it's around 196. And when he won, it's secure. Then he goes down and wins a couple races with Red Bull, replacing, I believe he replaced Albon at Red Bull. And he's been good there for the last couple of years. But why wouldn't you want the young Monegasque who is having some problems with Ferrari? It's intriguing. It's very intriguing. I'm really interested to see if this goes even further. And maybe we get some clarification about it in Hungary. And I'll be very interested to see if we do get clarification from this in Hungary. But moving out of F1, we're going to go to Wimbledon. And I really apologize for not having a show yesterday because we would have been able to preview the final on the women's side. And I'm actually glad because I would have said Jabeur runs away with it. No, Jabeur lost in straight sets. Second year in a row that Ons Jabeur has lost the Wimbledon final. And this goes to Vondrousova, an unranked player from Czechia. And Vondrousova, who had a very interesting route to here, as she went on to defeat Svitolina in the semifinals, and in the quarter she beat Jess Pegula, who she proved right there that she can deal with a top 3 player. And Jabeur, who's ranked lower, but I think Jabeur is the 3rd best player in the world, top 4, better than Pegula, better than Coco Gauff. Jabeur, the question is going to be, I think, going forward for Jabeur, she can do it in a lot of areas. She can get through in this tournament to the last 4, for example. Can she finish the job? She looked good in this tournament. She looked really good. I mean, look at what Jabeur was able to do. Let's recap a little bit. Jabeur dropped the opening set to Sabalenka and battled back and beat Sabalenka. You go back to Tuesday. Actually, she played when that was when she beat Rybakina. And she did the same with Sabalenka and Rybakina. She dropped the opening set. Came back in 1-3. Monday, we'll go all the way back to Monday. She beat Kvitova in a very convincing fashion, 16 over 19 straight sets. So, Ons Jabeur has the talent. It's just, can she do it when she needs it the most in the final? And that's what I'm really intrigued to look out going forward is, can Ons Jabeur get it done? And shout out to Vondrousova, who I watched the highlights. She deserved to win the match. It's disappointing for Jabeur, who was one of my picks, but at the end of the day, it's good to see an unranked player at the same time go out and win a major, because we're not going to see that on the men's side, I don't think, for a good amount of time, because Novak and Alcaraz go head-to-head tomorrow. I cannot wait for this match to unfold. Why? Because it's so unpredictable. You have the old, I'll call him the old man. It's like David, and not David and Goliath because of how difference in talent. No, it's in age. And that's why I'm going with this, because you have David, the youngster, in Alcaraz, and it's Goliath, the big name everyone knows about, in Novak Djokovic. So Djokovic, who's been known for that big forehand, big serve, he can move a little bit. He's won so many majors. I think he can be the one with the most majors with a win at Wimbledon tomorrow. And then you have Alcaraz, who has won 1 or 2 majors. I don't remember the exact number, but he's just that dude. It's the battle of the 1 and 2. And that's what I think a lot of people predicted when this tournament started. I'm very interested to see how these two go head to head with each other, especially with Djokovic's strategy, because Alcaraz changed the game a little bit, especially the younger guys have changed the game a little bit with a lot more drop shots, a lot more court movement rather than just rallying forehands the whole time, which is interesting. So I'm very interested to see Alcaraz make Djokovic move. Who wins this match? I think it's Alcaraz. I think Alcaraz wins it. It's disappointing to say, but I think it's going to go to Alcaraz with how much movement he has and how much energy he's going to have in this match, because he had a very impressive result over Daniil Medvedev in 3 straight sets of 6-3. Remember, Novak had to go to a tiebreak and almost dropped this set to Jannik Sinner. So, granted, Jannik Sinner, I think, is equal to the level of Medvedev. It's very interesting to see that these two have gone on straight sets. Let's look at their past. Alcaraz beat Holger Rune, who I thought was one of my picks to win it. Then you had Novak on Tuesday beat Rublev after dropping a set. So at the same time, it's very similar to Jabeur, where Novak's not going to back down after dropping a set. Alcaraz has dropped sets and he's gotten to the final. He had to have won the matches. Neither of these guys have gone to a 5-set match. I think this could be a 4 or 5-set match. It's not going to be easy, but I do think Carlos Alcaraz wins this match. I think, is in better form. It's going to be a back and forth match, but with a high energy, and I'm just very excited to watch how that matchup unfolds. Know what I wasn't excited to watch unfold? Our last topic of the day, the semifinals of the Gold Cup. And I thought the U.S. would run away with this match. And then we played the actual match. I watched it from my hotel room. And the U.S. didn't like. I didn't even have any words to say when this match finished. And the reason was this match should have been over in the first half. Panama, let's look at the stats. Let's just look at the numbers. Panama outpossessed, outshot had more shots on target, more passes, more pass accuracy. They played what they wanted to do. They had their strategy and they perfected it. Panama has played very well against the United States, but not on American soil. The last time we saw Panama on American soil, they lost 5-1 in World Cup qualification last March. Now Panama goes out against the United States B/C squad, led by Jesus Ferreira and Matt Turner. They shut them down, Ferreira, until, like, I'm trying to even remember who scored the goals. You can't even remember. Ferreira scored the goal. It was, first of all, great goal. But this match should not have been in extra time. Panama had a lot more of attacks. They had good aerial balls. They did everything what they needed to do. They just couldn't finish in the final third in the first half. And that is the reason this match went to extra time. Matt Turner made some very clutch saves for the United States, but this is a big concern for the United States, questioning the depth that they have. And now Greg Berhalter coming back. What will the U.S. look like in their next set of friendlies? Will they throw out the whole MLS team? What will we see with Gio Reyna, and what will we see with, if they're going to change anything with Berhalter? I'm very intrigued for that. And shout out to Panama, because they, like I said, Ivan Anderson scored the goal. I thought that was it. And then the U.S. showed some fight, but Ivan Anderson should have scored again. He was a great impact in this match, Ivan Anderson. I believe he scored a penalty as well. I mean, I thought Quintero had a great ball, had a ball in the box. He headed it, big save. Turner keeps the United States in the match. That's the only reason the United States stayed in this match the whole time, was Matt Turner and some plays by the center backs. The attack didn't look very good. The midfield didn't look very good. I'm surprised Christian Roldan took a penalty. I thought that was a big mistake by BJ Callahan in his last match as in the head coaching post for now. And now, looking past that, Panama makes the final, which they deserve to win. And who are they going to be playing? They're going to be playing Mexico. And I had a feeling this was going to happen. I really wanted to root for the Jamaicans, but when you see Henry Martin score in the second minute, and then Chavez scored, it was 2-0 at the break, 2-0 in 30 minutes, and then 2-0 at the break. Mexico adds a third with Alvarado in the 93rd minute, and a dominant 3-0 victory. I questioned Mexico going to this tournament. I thought they were going to be eliminated in the quarterfinals. They've made the final. And I really should have looked at the roster more, because they brought out a lot of 18 guys for this. Let's look at the lineup, and I'll tell you how many 18 guys they have in this. Ochoa, first teamer. Montez, first teamer. Chavez, first teamer. Martinez, arguably a first teamer. Gallardo, first teamer, arguably. You have Romo, arguably a first teamer. Sanchez, arguably a first teamer. They have a lot of guys who can arguably be in the first team. I think they can be, at least. And then the substitutes. Edson Alvarez. That is Edson Alvarez, right? I'm just trying to remember who's who. I believe that is it's Edson Alvarez, first teamer, and that's not even a dispute. You have Alvarado, who scored the goal. You had Jimenez, Rodriguez as well. So this is the difference between wanting to play your young guys, like the United States, and wanting to win the whole tournament. Mexico's way of it, where Mexico's, I don't know if they're throwing, I think they might be throwing on some people from the Nations League in this, which is interesting. I mean, you saw Ochoa, I believe, playing both. Why couldn't It's very puzzling to me, the squad. I remember when the U.S. squad was put into this tournament, I thought this would be a bounce back, and you'd see a lot of young stars rise to the occasion. Vasquez, Ferreira was still going to be there. Matt Turner, arguably one of the best goalkeepers in the United. He is the best goalkeeper in the American setup, and I think a top three goalkeeper in CONCACAF, arguably with Andre Blake and Ochoa, who went head to head yesterday on Wednesday. So it's very interesting to see the direction that Mexico went, and kudos to them. They made the final. They wanted it more. They wanted to throw their first teamers out there. They wanted them to get more reps together, and they wanted to go out and win the Gold Cup. That it could have gone either way with them in the United States 2 years ago, if not for a Miles Robinson header in the 116th minute. It could have gone Mexico's way if they performed in the shootout. So Mexico goes through, and we have our final of Mexico and Panama, which is tomorrow. And look, it's so easy to say that Mexico will win this match because they haven't really played a stressful match all tournament other than Qatar, and they didn't throw out a lot of their 8 squad guys from the roster that they have in that match. And it was also a match that really didn't matter. So it's very easy to say that Mexico will win this match, but Panama's not going to make this easy. Panama's they can play very defensive. They can go on the attack. They have some players that can play in the middle. Waterman was very good off the bench. He could have had a goal scoring opportunity. Let's look at this. Who played well for Panama against the United States? Let's go over the players. You had Ivan Anderson, who looked great in that match with the United States. He should have scored he could have scored a goal. I'm just trying to find players. Ivan Anderson scored. Waterman was a good impact off the bench. You had Quintero. Diaz looked good on the left side. He was a little bit of a problem for the United States. Davis, Godoy, who got Carrasquilla, I thought was pretty good in playmaking in the midfield. So Panama has some players. And kudos to Mosquera, the goalkeeper for Panama, who kept the United States out of the back of the net. Same with their back five with Andrade, Cummings, and Escobar. Those 3 center backs really held down the United States attack. That was really not inspiring, is the way I'll put it. Kind of Greg Berhalter-esque in a way, where against these lower ranked teams in the world, the United States doesn't rise to the occasion. Well, that was the case under Berhalter at times, especially on the road. They would not be able to beat Costa Rica. They drew Jamaica. They would lose to Panama by by 1 goal. They lose to Costa Rica by a couple of goals. You draw El Salvador. You'd go down at the half to Honduras. You don't want to see this as an American fan. But this isn't about America. This is about the Panamanian national team and how good they looked against the United States. And they're going to be going up against the Mexico team I think this match is going to go either way, but I do think it's the boys in green that hoist the trophy. It would be awesome to see Panama win it as an American fan, because it would be really funny. But at the same time, I have to go with the team that's more experienced. Andre Blake could have had his revenge in getting back to a final, because remember, he was in the MLS Cup, arguably one of the best MLS Cup finals ever, but couldn't hold it down because Jamaica a little bit disappointing in that semifinal. But at the end of the day, it'll be Panama against Mexico, and I think Mexico gets it done. Unfortunately, that will be the end of today's podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll be going up on Tuesday as our next podcast from a different setup, of course. So yeah, Tuesday will be our next podcast. Should go up about 8 p.m. But I'll see you guys then, and have a good rest of your day. Have a good weekend. I'll see you on Tuesday.